All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Wednesday, May 17th, the night of Game 1. Heat Celtics. It's going to be a quick 4-game series, and Brandon's Heat will be going home as the Celtics will be taking care of business. Not even going to break a sweat, and it's going to be an easy series.
And Jose's Lakers are probably already down 0-1.
They
Probably
probably
not.
are. Probably are. So, anyway, talking about OU stuff. So, OU picked up a commitment from a Juco player on Tuesday. There's an update on Bryant Wesco. He released his official visit list in June. That did not include Oklahoma. What does that mean? Justin Denson, a corner, released the top 12 that included Oklahoma. Oklahoma is also in the running and offered for Onus Konobane. He's a cornerback, out of Georgia, but originally from the UK. And then we're going to talk a little bit of OU softball, obviously being the number 1 overall seed, and also shout out to OU men's golf. They're playing pretty well in their regional as well. A lot of good spring sports going for Oklahoma. It's pretty impressive what Oklahoma's doing across all spring sports. Just would like to see that translate to winning conference championships and national championships for the football team this fall. So let's start with the newest member of the Sooners, part of the 2023 class, a late addition. Lane Jenkins out of Butler Community College is a late offer, late addition along the defensive line. He had held offers, obviously, from Oklahoma, and then Illinois, Indiana, Iowa State, and Kansas. That have, according to 247, 6'6", 255 pounds. Last year, he had a total, as a true freshman, played in 5 games, 8 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. It does seem a little interesting, not saying that it's really a late addition. I mean, we're mid-May, and you're adding a JUCO player. Obviously, it's not shocking. I kind of felt like, we've talked about the depth being a little thin along the defensive line. Oklahoma missed out on a few players in the high school ranks, obviously, like a David Hicks or whoever the kid was. I forget his name, that went to Texas. That was supposed to be a part of this 23 class. I forget his name. The
Celia
Hawaiian.
Kana.
Cecilia Kana, yes, you're right. And so it shows in why they offered and got another player. Jose, what do you think about him?
Definitely what you said. Everything you said. Repeat that. And then it's interesting that where he plays on the defensive line, because the depth and where it lacks is the interior, and he played edge at the JUCO level. Are they going to make him beef up, not really play this season? Because he is a super late addition. So if you look at the track record, of this coaching staff just from a year ago, they're not going to put someone in that doesn't know the playbook, no matter how talented they may be. Maybe this is a year where he uses it to bulk up and they use him on the interior next year if he gets playing opportunity. It's just interesting how they're recruiting that defensive line position. And I don't think it's so much of they can or they can't, or they're missing. I don't think kids are just straight up not interested in playing in Oklahoma, because we've seen the exact opposite. Oklahoma is probably in more defensive line battles than they have been pre this staff. But they're all pretty light when you look at them, especially the way that we saw the defensive scheme look last year for most of the season. A lot of fans were frustrated with there being a 3-man front when you had some pretty small guys on that defensive line. Compared to what you look at when you see other teams that run 3-man fronts, usually they have one just monstrous human being in the middle, and then two guys on the sides that are still quite big, but I don't think Reggie Grimes or Ethan Downs are big enough to be in those positions that often, personally. Who knows? Maybe if he doesn't bulk up, then who does bulk up? Is it Ethan Downs? Does Reggie Grimes stay another year and pack on more pounds and play on the interior? I don't know. That's the most interesting part of me. Why continue going after edge players when it seems like, from the outside looking in, your interior is the weakness of the defensive line right now?
I like Lane Jenkins' size a lot, actually. I think at 6'6", 260 for a defensive end is like a perfect frame. I think that's a really, really good spot for him to be. Oklahoma has obviously had some success with Juco defensive linemen in the past. You look at Perry Winfrey, you look at Isaiah Coe. Maybe Jenkins could be the third one down the line. I agree right away. I think he's a depth piece, kind of like Connor Neal when we talked about him. I think barring injury, Lane Jenkins probably won't see the field year one in Oklahoma. And Brum, you mentioned a late addition to the 2023 class, and that's right. But I think this is Oklahoma getting in on Lane Jenkins earlier than most teams. Then instead of him having his sophomore year at Butler Community College, maybe putting together a pretty big season, and then all of a sudden the offer list is huge. Oklahoma kind of only had to beat out Illinois and Iowa State and one other school offering him as a freshman. I put up decent numbers as a freshman playing only 5 games. He had 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. Again, great size for a defensive end. I think a good depth piece, and hopefully down the line he is just another hit out of the JUCO ranks for the Sooners along the defensive line.
I guess my thought is potentially, when you look at the depth at that position, you got Bothrid and Trace Ford. Those are both going to be seniors. Stripling as well. I believe he's a senior and only have this year left. If Ethan Downs has a really good year, Reggie Grimes has a really good year, if any of those players have a really good year, they're going to go to the league. So I just wonder, you got guys graduating. If one or two of those guys really pop, they could be gone. Is this the way that Oklahoma saying, okay, he's not going to probably most likely play this year. We feel really good about a handful of players in this high school ranks, this recruiting right now. But things happen, and we felt really good about a few other players, and we ended up losing out on them. Is this them hedging a little bit of thinking, hey, if we go 100%, great, we can make the room for them. If not, we want to have at least one more person there that's going to be there the fall of 24. And I just wonder if this is their way of kind of doing, hey, we think we're not going to give up, but in the off chance we don't, we've got someone. Maybe I'm being more pessimistic, but I just kind of wonder if this is them hedging too. Not saying he's not good.
It could be. And what's interesting is how quickly he committed, because he posted his offer on Twitter at like 12:40, and 2 minutes later, he posted that he was committed. Like the phone call with the coaches about getting the offer and committing probably took longer between him making those tweets. Like, I don't know if that means he was like fully bought in, or maybe he noticed it was a really good opportunity with the defense, the scheme, the coaches that he'd be playing for. He just wanted to jump at that chance. But it was a quick turnaround there.
It really was. But, at the end of the day, I can't say that if I was in the JUCO ranks and Oklahoma offered me, I would commit on the spot. So I don't blame him. But by far the biggest and most prestigious program out there. So Oklahoma also made a top 12 for Justin Denson. And that list is, obviously includes Oklahoma and a handful of other schools. For a cornerback, we've got a little confused. He's kind of been tweeting about, why is everyone thinking I'm, safety, because 247 has him listed as a safety. But his top 12 included A&M, Maryland, Penn State, Miami, Florida, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arkansas, South Carolina, Florida State, Michigan State, and Colorado. So, again, if you've been following us long enough, we obviously, 12 schools is a ton of schools, and that's not that narrowed down. And we've talked about Denson before, and from what I remember talking about him, he has an official locked in for OU for the weekend of June 16th through the 18th. And I believe that is his first visit to Oklahoma. And I might be wrong there. There might be one other visit, but I can't remember off the top of my head. It's either his first or second visit. But he's got an official locked up with Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's got a legitimate chance here. 12 schools is a lot of schools. For someone that isn't ranked on 247, that's a pretty good list of schools that are interested in him. I do wonder. I think Oklahoma's probably more in the top 5 of the 12. I think Oklahoma's up there, and I think this is also them, just casting a wide net. Brandon, what do you think?
I agree. I think he's very adamant, first of all, about not being a safety. He tweeted earlier today, mad at recruiting sites for listing him as a safety because he's not being recruited at that. So he's definitely a corner. He brings good size to the corner spot. I mentioned Lane Jenkins' size at 6'5" or 6'6", 260 for a defensive end. I think that 6'1", 6 feet and a half, 180 for a corner is also pretty damn good for that spot. He moves well, tackles well. I think he's a very underrated prospect because 24/7 has him like not even ranked. He's the 3-star on some other sites, but like the dude holds 27 offers and some from big time schools, like you mentioned. I mean, just look at his top 12. And I agree with you. I think Oklahoma sits in a pretty good spot. I think, he's a kid that if he does end up making the call to call Norman home, he's a kid that can be a quality depth piece for a couple of years and then maybe get his chance. He's got good frame, good speed. It's an exciting prospect, and hopefully OU is able to land him down the road. But he's definitely a corner.
He is most definitely a corner. The frame is what stands out when you look at him as a prospect because he is a larger corner, and that's what Oklahoma seems to be trending towards and wanting to recruit. Like they're kind of out of the business of going with any corner under 6 feet tall unless they're just extremely, talented at what they do, which there's definitely those guys out there. But usually, especially now going into the SEC, you want bigger guys that aren't scared to compete for the ball and aren't scared to hit someone, which is exactly what Justin is. Again, and what you guys said, looking at his top 12, the fact that he's only a 3-star shows that sometimes kids are slept on. Schools like A&M, Penn State, Oklahoma, even at this point South Carolina, and Colorado, especially at the corner spot, they don't just offer guys, they don't offer guys that they don't see potential in. And this shows you, I think, that in some cases, stars really don't matter. I get when the draft came around this last year, people were tweeting about how all the 5-stars that got drafted in the top 10, I bet you 8 out of 10 of those will not be any good in the NFL.
If this kid does call Oklahoma home, sorry, keep going.
No, you're good.
I don't know if you're wrapping up. If this kid does pick Oklahoma and he's a Sooner one day, is he the first OU recruit out of Rhode Island? I can't think of any kid that OU's ever landed out of Rhode Island.
Not off the top of my head.
That's going to be the end of video challenge.
End of video in the middle of the video.
End of video in the middle of the video. Has OU ever landed a high school kid out of Rhode Island? As I can't think of one.
Shoot, I can't.
You have to
either.
Google it. I'm gonna Google it now and see.
All right. So while he's Googling that, and maybe you don't say anything, but maybe someone might be able to get an answer for us for the end of video challenge. So let's also talk about wide receiver Bryant Wesco. So Bryant Wesco released an official visit list, a slate in June, and that list did not include Oklahoma. And I believe the list included, TCU, Clemson. I'm trying to remember the other few off the top of my head. But he's got 4 or 5 visits lined up, and it does not include Oklahoma. Now, the question is, obviously, Wesco's been on campus a ton. As a 5-star wide receiver, Emmett Jones has been prioritizing him, and Oklahoma wants him badly. It's never good whenever he releases a list, whenever you got your biggest recruiting weekend in June, and he's not going to be there. Or at least right now, he's not slated to be there. Now, in the same token, he's been to OU a ton. He's familiar. His sister was once on the soccer team. Is this a big deal? Is he going to make a visit later? Jose, what do you think?
So it's definitely not ideal that he's not taking an official visit to Oklahoma, and that's just for now. There's a chance that Oklahoma planned something with him to come for the July weekend, the Party in the Palace event. There's always that chance because, this year, after July 1st, they can have more than, that 6th and on official visit. There's a chance, but you also got to think maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to take an official visit because he has been to Oklahoma so many times because probably visited his sister a ton while she was at OU. She is at North Texas now, so I would say it's safe to say that he's not following where his sister is going to be, which bodes well for Oklahoma at this point because she's no longer at OU. But maybe it definitely evens the playing fields for the other teams that we're trying to catch up to where OU's spot was or is in like TCU and Clemson. Those two seem to be the ones that are constantly talked about as contenders for Wesco's services. It could be that the door opened just enough for them to come in and take them right out from under OU's rug.
This is a crazy recruiting process. Not long ago, but 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were on a live stream talking about who's going to be the first 2024 receiver to commit between Zion Kearney and Bryant Wesco because we were so locked in with Bryant Wesco. We thought it was a done deal, thought it was going to happen within the coming weeks or whatever. And obviously that just shows the landscape of college football recruiting and how crazy this shit gets and how, just it's ridiculous. I don't think that him not taking an official is the worst thing ever, I guess, for Oklahoma. Like Jose said, he's probably been here 1,000 times. He said he's been here, whatever. He's familiar with the coaching staff. He's familiar with probably the scheme. He knows everything he needs to know about OU. So I don't feel like it necessarily puts us out of the running, but you definitely want to see him take an official. I don't think it's a great sign that he's not. It's just been a crazy cycle. But I think as this keeps dragging out, and I feel like the last 2 updates we've done on Bryant Wesco have not been necessarily great for OU, and I don't love that for the Sooners. So we'll see how it plays out. And, it went from his sister being here. That's good for OU. He's going to end up being here. She transfers. Like Jose said, he's not going to North Texas, so that bodes well. But it's who knows with this. I definitely wish he was taken in OV though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I found the list where he's going to be going. It's USC, then Clemson, then LSU, TCU, Tennessee, and that's currently what's on the docket right now. Oklahoma's still looming out there. I certainly hope that he's going to commit sometime this summer. I certainly hope that Oklahoma can get an official and maybe he comes by for the party in the Palace or party at the Palace in July before he makes his commitment. I think he's going to commit into July, beginning in August. So hopefully Oklahoma can squeeze an official in there. And the counterpoint, the glass half full is, well, he's so confident Oklahoma is going to go look elsewhere and then he's going to save his last visit for OU and save the best for last. That's the positive thinking, but it's not a great look. I'm not going to sit up here and act like, man, I feel nothing changes. Of course, it doesn't look great, but at the end of the day, like you said, Brandon, things change, and I certainly hope Oklahoma's not falling out of favor here.
I don't know what you guys think, but these are like the situations where sometimes the policy that the staff has with recruiting and taking all your visits can backfire on you, because it seemed like it was a pretty secure thing a few months ago that Wesco was going to be a Sooner. And it's not, like you said, Brum, it's not like he's for sure not going to be part of this 2024 class. There's still a very good chance because the connections he does have to OU outside of his sister. But imagine if you would already be part of this class, like you would it's easier to keep someone on when they've already bought into the idea rather than having to resell the idea if it was predicated on your family will be here.
No, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I feel like in college football recruiting, it's kind of pick your poison. And I guess this is where they've drawn the line in the sand because us, you're being with Lincoln Riley and stuff. I mean, the amount of times we saw a commitment pop really quick and then all for it to just disappear in 3 months. But that still happens even with this policy. So it's like, I don't know. What do you do? I mean, I guess they just try to do damage control and keep it to a minimum.
Well, it's not like they're not against taking recruits early. I mean, we're saying that they had 2025 guys before they had what they do have in the 2024 class already. But I mean, I just don't understand, like, what's the difference between Sperry and
Grayson Harris?
Why are they, like, what was the selling point, I guess, at that point for the staff to say, you know what, we'll take your commitments 2 years before you're even going to sign a piece of paper that says you're going to be part of the class, rather than, making you wait like we've done the last 2 recruiting cycles.
Yeah.
Maybe those kids were just adamant.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
So
there's that chance.
Yeah. So just a little mid-video pause. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's in the description below. And so let's move on to another topic. So Oklahoma Tuesday evening offered Onus Konobane. He currently plays football in the state of Georgia. He's a 2025, 4-star cornerback, 6'2", 170 pounds. He's originally from the UK, so he's playing at a private prep school that preps kids for college athletics and other things. So it's a private boarding school. And, when you look at his offer list, he's really been exploding. So Oklahoma just threw their name in the hat. In the month of May, schools like Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Ohio State have all offered. And then he has other offers like Tennessee and Kentucky and Penn State and Michigan from earlier in the year. So his recruitment is starting to take off. I mean, 247 has him as a 4-star, the number 20 corner in the class. 6'2", 170. Again, it feels like a common theme for all these defensive backs. When we just talked about Denson, what is Denson? Denson's 6'2" as well. So
He's 6 feet and a half, 6'1".
6'1". So they're all above 6 feet. So we're not going for the 5'9", 5'8", 5'10". Some instances, I'm sure they do, but overall, it seems like that they're going for the longer, lankier guys. Brandon, what do you think about Onus?
I think this recruitment is going to take forever to settle out. As you just mentioned, like the dude, he's class of 25. He's already 170, 6'2", so he's going to bulk into a more college-ready frame by the time he is in college. But you mentioned the month of May alone, the dude's offers are starting to really pop. I don't think this kid is even at this point really thinking about where he's going to play college football. Like, I'm sure it's in the back of his mind. Like, it's not something that he's totally pushing to the side, not even thinking about at all. But I don't think it's at all his focus, number one. These offers are going to continue to roll in. There's going to be a long, long way to go in Onus's recruiting process altogether. He's probably got buds out there that he wants to see where they're going to go first, or who they're talking to. This process is literally just beginning with Onus. So it's almost too early for me to even go out here and try to make sense of this, because I think it's just going to take it. It's so far down the line, man. That's my thought.
That's kind of big coming from you, Bunnett, since you're usually the one out of the 3 of us that says Oklahoma's gonna be in this for the long haul. And
I'm optimistic. I'm always.
Yeah, I think with Onus, the fact that he's in Georgia shouldn't be something that as fans we should really worry about. This to me looks kind of like a by Job recruitment, where he's not from the States. He's really gonna be looking for possibly an education, a program that's going to get him ready for the NFL more than likely. If Javelai is still the cornerback coach, and who knows, maybe at that point he gets promoted to DC, I like OU's chances in the long haul. That does require him to be part of the staff. Like, without him and Brandon Hall, I think you're going to have a tough road ahead of you unless you somehow upgrade. But from those 2 guys, there's very few DB coach duos that recruit better than them without having those results on the field. Like, the guys that recruit better than them right now are, Georgia's coaches, Alabama's coaches, LSU. because they have Brian Kelly. Like, there's not. You can make an argument that Jay Bly and Brandon Hall are in the top 5 of recruiting, and with regards to recruiting. And they had a shit season last year. Like, imagine what recruiting is going to look like if OU can click and be what we all know OU should be and be competing for conference championships, be in national championship conversations. Like, you got 2 guys that as soon as the defense starts to look really good and the team starts winning, they will be in the conversation for every single top defensive talent.
I agree. We talk about that all the time. Like
definitely.
OU has to put together a decent season next year. That's it. That's it. We have to put together a decent season if we want to stay competitive among the big boys.
I think Burnbaugh's lagging a little bit.
Yep. Oh yeah, I lagged a little bit. I heard a little bit, but not at all. Not all of it. So, last topic: OU softball, number 1 overall seed. Hosting, starting on Friday, I believe, on the 19th. They have their regional, Cal, Mizzou, and Hofstra. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of, I'd imagine, run rules and things like that. Now, looking ahead, going to their super regionals, they've got Clemson in the next round, and then eventually Stanford or Duke. I mean, this is kind of the luxury you do get as the number 1 seed, and this is why you compete to try to win as many games as possible. They've got a relatively easy path, but Clemson is 46-9, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I sit.
51-1 is better.
I understand, but I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched Clemson softball, because I honestly have not, believe it or not. But there are higher seeds with worse records, and Clemson at 46-9. I mean, they have a better record than Oklahoma State as the number 6 seed, better than Alabama, better than Texas, about the same as Tennessee. So I'm not saying that Clemson's on the same level, but that is an interesting component. I still think Oklahoma runs away. I think they repeat.
It's not a repeat anymore. Wouldn't it be a three-peat?
I guess it would be a three-peat. You are correct. But I don't know. That's Oklahoma's far and away the best team. But,
I agree.
I think how many games do they lose this postseason run? I don't know if they go undefeated.
Probably 1.
Yeah. I was going to say that the better question is, how many games will they have to go all 7? I feel like they're run ruling most of these teams.
Cal did beat UCLA by 8, though. They 8-0'd UCLA. UCLA is always pretty good. Although Oklahoma beat them by 2 touchdowns.
You've got Patty Goat over here on our side, and she's just going to get the girls going.
It is natty for Patty season.
It is. I mean, not a whole lot of analysis when you're like Oklahoma and how stacked you are. You're just better than everyone, and they should win. If they don't, it'd be a disappointment. But
we should win. Also, the Lakers are getting their ass kicked right now.
Let's relax.
Just a fun fact.
They're down 16. So, all right. Well, made it this far. Brandon, do you have an individual challenge, or I guess you got a mid-video challenge?
We did the mid-video challenge, and I couldn't find one just with a quick Google search. So if anybody does know of a Rhode Island recruit ever to commit to Oklahoma, put that name in there, because I'm interested now, just because I feel like there isn't one. And this Justin Denson kid could be the first, so that alone is pretty fun. But let's just stick with the Rhode Island theme now. So we have a middle video challenge with Rhode Island, and let's just do it in the video too. So if anybody's been to Rhode Island, like a Providence or something, what is the best place to eat in Providence, Rhode Island? Because I'm curious to see if we have any listeners who have, spent some time in Providence. That'll be interesting.
What is in Rhode Island?
Providence. Crabs. Don't they do seafood there? Isn't that like a thing?
Yeah, they're over there in that area of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the smallest state, right?
Yeah.
And 500 people live there?
Right up next to, it's like, isn't it like 50 square miles or something?
Who knows? Maybe we have a listener that's from Rhode Island.
So that'd be awesome. That's what I'm
pretty
trying to find. I would love to see if we get a comment about the best place to eat in Providence. Then we need to take a road trip to Providence. It's probably not very far, just like Seattle.
It's a quick drive.
Yeah, just go up to Boston whenever the Celtics are about to close out the NBA championship. So anyway, all right. So made it this far. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below, and we will catch you guys on Friday.